Hello everyone, this is Philip. An update tonight for you guys along with John Stallman, who's here with me.
Good evening.
And we are here at the Rainy Hub today. We're still putting it back together to reopen on Monday is our plan. And hopefully our signal will be pretty good here. We got some rain, heavy rain in the area. There's some lightning and thunder. But we'll update you guys with what we can here. Hopefully you can hear us. So, the first thing everyone has been asking us is about the plates on Highway 130. So let me pull it up for you guys over here. Hi everybody. All right. So here we are on Puna traffic cams. And we have, let's update make sure we get the clearest video here. So we got a video out here of some Department of Public Works staff, looks like, vehicle here. They're checking out the plates and cracks over here in the area of 130. John and I drove down there just a few minutes ago and checked it out, and we didn't see any increased temperature at the plates. I think all reports are that they've kind of cooled down if there was a spike at all. One of the issues that's been going on down there is actually as of right now, you guys can see the video feed actually has gone out. But it was showing that thermal image here till just recently, although it had actually changed from being a color to a grayscale image. And I know a lot of you guys have been watching Harry Durgan's graph of the temperatures of the plates, and how that actually shows on a plot. And if you look at that, it looks like there's actually a spike today. So let me see if I can pull that up for you guys somehow. Where is the plot? Exactly. Hold on. Let me get organized here, you guys. And there's the plot. So here's a plot of the Highway 130 plate heat that we got from Harry Durgan. And what you guys can see is that the temperatures, each one of these is midnight. I'll check our day. Well, I better get out my pointer. But basically, I'm looking over here at the plot for today. You guys can see there's a big spike showing. There was an earlier kind of spike, maybe right around here, but that was maybe because it was a really clear and sunny day, or possibly because there was more gas moving through that area. It's hard to really tell. But this later spike, the one that comes after that, this one over here, this tall one over here, that's actually a false reading because of the change in the camera up there, and it's being detected differently by the software. So, there it is. Here we go. There, that spike right there. There's our spike. All right, so yeah, it's pouring rain here, and that's basically the plates, so we have also heard, I see you guys chatting here, that there is rain up in the area of the fire, and that was what we heard earlier today as well, reports from Volcano Village of some heavy rain in the area, so we're hoping that puts the fire out. We'd heard it's grown over, I want to say 3,200 acres, something like that. It's hard to get exact numbers with things changing, and the mapping is not all coherent there, but we believe that that's about how big it is. I think I looked it up. It's somewhere under 6 square miles, more or less, is the size of that thing. So it's a huge area that's burned. Right now, the Pohoiki area is still actually slightly under threat, but I'm pretty sure that that's the main efforts of the firefighters up on the Manalo Strip Road, is to keep that fire break above Pohoiki from spreading the fire any longer, long enough for all the rain to put it out. So we'll see. We'll hope for better news for that tomorrow. But yeah, there's been plenty of thunder and lightning down here in the Pohoiki area and elsewhere around. This is probably the remains of the weather system of a hurricane coming through. So often what happens is a hurricane will come through, and then like behind the hurricane we get some really still air and still clear, humid air. So it was really nice and clear this morning, really clear. The winds were pretty slack. We have reports from pretty much all over the place of people smelling sulfur this morning. Right. We don't believe that there's any more sulfur coming out of the ground, but more that the winds have been blowing it in places that we're not used to smelling it. It's also possible that the exact components of sulfur gas, like the kinds of gas that you're smelling, might be slightly different than you're used to, because there is some extra gas coming out of the ground through steam and also from the fissure, it seems like, Pu'o as well had that interesting little burp of SO2 a few days ago. So it could be that there's actually some different varieties of sulfur coming out of there, possibly. You know, the hydrogen sulfides, the more stinky stuff. I've been hearing reports of people smelling that around as well. So it could be that people are smelling hydrogen sulfide, and then it's possible there's some other varieties. And I'm not a gastrochemist, so I can't tell you exactly which ones are the likely ones or what they'd smell like. But that's basically it. So you guys wishing me birthday wishes. Thank you. My birthday's tomorrow.
Wow. Forgot about that.
Here in Hawaii. It's not tomorrow yet, but thank you. So that's basically the story on what we know for the gas and the kind of the weather. It seems like I haven't put up the hurricane thing. Maybe we can pull it up later on. But it seems like the island did a pretty good job of keeping the hurricane away, or the hurricane chose to go around the island instead of coming through. And then it seems like the actual structure of the eye wall like really changed once it got past the island and kind of got affected by that. So that's interesting to talk about maybe later on. But you know, as usual, our first party today is a volcano. So we have seen a bunch of gas coming out today. I think this morning it was partly because of the weather conditions. It's possible that there is more different kinds of gas coming out. Yeah. So, John, you want to add anything to that?
Well, not much. Just with the steam, you know, we can expect that a lot of those fissures are going to be steamy, possibly for decades. For the rest of our lives, we might have steam vents over there. So just because they look more steamy, sometimes that's usually has to do with the dew point in the air. And we don't have any real sense that there's been like an increase in emissions or a precursor to more activity at any of the fissures. But a lot of people did notice more steam, and it mostly probably has to do with the atmosphere and the rain starting to move in. Because there's hot rock for a half a mile down each one of those erupted fissures, and it'll stay hot for years and years, most likely, at least in some areas. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I mean, one thing I've been just trying to remind people is that the actual old steam vents, including the steam vent inn and the spas and the saunas that were all down there, like they're what, like 100 yards down the road from the actual steel plates now. It's not that far. Right. And those cracks, you know, are probably feeding from that same source of heat, the same source of water, most likely. And those things have been steaming since what, 55?
55. Yep.
So you know, that's kind of what's going on there. So let me see what other comments came in. I think I saw something come in. Oh yeah, so thanks Gabe. Yeah, the hurricane is actually drawing some deep tropical moisture, and there's like a feeder band that's kind of shooting from it kind of towards us and bringing all the moisture from near the equator and from the hurricane kind of up around the island, and that's kind of why we're having this kind of secondary effect, which is usually what we get here in the island. You know, we usually have it, you know.
Well, and we need it right about now for the fire. We need the rain, so it's good. The rain's good that it came in.
Yeah, so we'll
just
appreciate
in
that.
time.
So that's basically it. You know, just kind of recap. You know what we talked about already as far as the storm a little bit, the volcano, the temperature spike on the plates. We believe might have been actually like a false reading. You know, we don't really see a whole lot of that. In fact, it's been kind of pouring rain here, so everything has cooled down back again. And let's now turn to our sensors that we've told you guys were going to be the thing we're watching the closest. So let's go ahead and look at that.
Some interesting
here coming up
today.
So,
still hard to say what to make of it exactly.
All right.
Go with this one first. So, as you can see, to start off, you know, since a few days ago, since the 4th, we've been basically flatline all the way across, but you can see there is a little bit of wiggle happening on that line. And so when we look in closer at the summit, this is what it's looked like in, let's see, this is just 2 days on this graph.
Yeah,
so
zoomed in.
For a while, it's really, really zoomed in. We always like to point out the scale here. So this is only going from 0 up to a microradian and a half and down a microradian and a half there. So tiny, tiny changes. And for a few days, we were watching this line go down and then rise up again, almost like a deflation-inflation cycle. On this plot now we can only see kind of one cycle, and it was starting to come to the bottom and inflating a little bit, but tiny changes. And right here is our 4.4 earthquake that a lot of people felt this morning. And that's where things kind of changed. It's really interesting because we can see at the summit there's a little discontinuity where it might have come back down like it was and deflated slightly. It just kept on inflating up until real recently here. And if we look at the East Rift Zone, this is down by Pu'uo'o, there's our 4.4 earthquake. And that kind of cut off the inflation that was looking like it was starting to inflate a little bit at that time. Cut it off, it started deflating a little more sharply. And so since the earthquake, we had the Pu'uo'o trend deflating downward, and the summit was inflating at the other time. So this is kind of like it changed our pattern, cut off the period of that deflation inflation cycle we were having, but it was showing that as the summit was inflating, Pu'uo'o kept deflating. So that's indicating they still have an open relationship. But then I would have been more confident about this, but in the past couple hours, this started to change again. It bottomed out and started rising, inflating down in the East Rift again. And we haven't seen that same kind of mirror image pattern at the summit at all. It looked like it was going to level off a couple hours ago, but now it's looking more like it's continuing to inflate. And so that's the best we can do, is kind of describe what the data is doing, but we don't have a real understanding of what this means. We have a few things that it kind of indicates there's still some relationship between this inflation at the summit and what's going on lower down in the rift. And it's interesting that earthquake did affect the pattern, but remember, we're dealing with tiny changes. So even though this has started to be inflating through that earthquake and on afterward, it really doesn't amount to a whole lot of change. We have to see if it keeps inflating now.
Right. So let's go back to the zoomed out view just to kind of put it in context once again. Here's the change we're looking at.
Yeah, you can see it's wiggled. It's coming up a little, down a little, up a little, down a little, and then now it's almost coming up again at the end here. But compared to the changes we've had for a few months, this is almost nothing. But we're looking at it very closely because, of course, we want to know what might end up happening next. And we kind of have to watch this over a longer time frame before we can get a lot of ideas about what that might be.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as our fuzziness, you gonna say anything about that? The fuzziness looks like it might be peaked right in here somewhere.
Yeah, it was kind of increasing amplitude into here. Kind of similar in here, but it was almost looking like it was decreasing again. And then there's our 4.4 earthquake. And to me, it looks like there's less of this vibration over here since the earthquake.
Right.
Maybe just slightly. And again, we don't know what that vibration, this fuzziness in our plot really is, but this is a graph of the tilt, not the earthquakes. So that's actual ground movement. Tiny movements up and down.
First down, then up, then down, probably over a course of minutes. Right. Not like an earthquake, but like a slow or up and down kind of thing.
Right. But the instruments are sensitive enough to pick that up, and it might mean something. It's just it's hard to work into any of our other ideas about how the summit and the East Rift might be related at this point. So it's not real clear.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that I put out there yesterday, I can repeat it again now, is that we actually had cracks on the back side. So let me zoom in over here a little bit. So here's the location of the sensors. The Wickhuna sensor is up here. The tilt meter, I believe, is that one, a little triangle right there. Mm-hmm. And so we know we've actually had cracks as far out as a golf course over here on the back side of this that have actually opened and moved slightly. And not to say that that's like, a moving fault line, but we know that the piece of land between that crack and the cracks that are clear over here might be a little bit loose, right? So maybe as whatever is happening underground is vibrating, is causing this piece of land to actually wiggle a little bit more, a little bit less, and when an earthquake actually hit, it caused it to actually wiggle as much as it could to settle, and then maybe it's slightly more settled now. It's that's kind of a hand wavy speculative idea of what might be going on, but that's kind of one thing that might help people make sense of it and find some peace of mind.
That's what we're doing. You always have good ideas. We're trying to give people some educated guesses, and those are ideas that fit the puzzle, and we just have to keep collecting more information to confirm things like that.
Right. So yeah, it's obviously it's, as you guys have seen, it's a lot harder to squeeze out all the interpretation when we only have the data plots. It's more useful when we have photographs and that kind of thing also, but we do what we got to do with what we got, right? So we can't go up on the summit and check it out, and we just got to go with this plat and see what's going on there. So yeah, that's the kind of the summit story. It kind of covers it basically, but I'd say summarize it. We still see at times, maybe not as clearly since this earthquake, but certainly before that, there's still a connection between a rift zone and the summit, right? Especially back when this is going down, right? So we see magma leaving the summit possibly and filling the rift zone. Maybe not as much. It's building up. The earthquake happens, and now still not as much. It's still going down. Overall trend is of deflation. So magma isn't filling the Pu'o area as much as it was before. That's what we can say just as a general trend. And we're still looking to see what connection there actually might be. So
complicated.
Might be worth talking about the kind of that big picture volume again, right?
Yep.
So
and then that can relate to the ground movement down here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you describe it, and we can link it back to the roadway.
Yeah, so it's really it's really hard to know how much lava is coming up from underneath the volcano into the magma chamber, kind of on a long term. There have been a whole bunch of different ways of people estimating it, and maybe the most relevant thing for you guys is to just focus on Pu'o itself. And Pu'o over the last, I'm not sure exactly what the time period is, but let's say more or less 20 years or so. I'd say it's probably a good number. The average for that is somewhere in the range of 0.3 to 0.6 million cubic meters of magma coming out per day. So 0.3 to 0.6, and the range that was given for Fissure 8 is in the range of, I think it was 5 to 15 was the biggest range that I saw given. And you guys, who have been following us, may remember how we've been looking at the images to try to glean some information about the depth of the channels, and the depth of the channels seems to be on a greater side of the estimates that USGS shared with us as far as how they're putting their estimates together. So I'm personally inclined to believe the 15 million cubic meters per day number, the higher end of the range, and that may even be an underestimate, and probably won't know until we have a real, nope, sorry guys, okay, I try to call. Until we have a real satellite capture that can actually do a digital elevation to get the volume of that lava, and then we'll really know how much volume there was, and then we can see how long it actually put out, then we'll really know a much better idea of the volume. Because right now, trying to estimate it from the flow speed is kind of gives a lot of error, basically.
Yeah, and we think it was probably more than the estimate, right? Because we think the channel was deeper than we were estimating the whole time.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we have some evidence of that, some indication, just the photos we're seeing of the empty channel now. So we're going with the higher estimate at this point, just based on what we've seen. So
yeah, so if we use that number, that 15. Oh, sorry guys, got the phone call trying to come in here, but we'll keep rolling. So if we look at that number from Pu'o of 0.3 to 0.6 compared to 15, then you're looking at let's say 0.6 to be on a higher side of Pu'o volume, because we don't really know how much is coming in. If it's the same amount, it's kind of an estimate. So if it actually is 0.6, then we're looking at 25 times less lava came out of Pu'o per day than Fissure 8. So 25 times less, and if we use that 0.3, it actually puts it at 50 times less. So I don't know exactly where in there it is, but maybe let's use 25 as more or less the number, right? So that means it's like something like 4% of the volume, right? Is that right? Okay. 25 by 4.
4% of Fissure 8's volume.
4% of Fissure 8's volume
is
a volume that came out of Pu'o. And that number is important because we're trying to use that as a kind of average of how much lava came into the volcano over the last 20 years, and maybe that's how much is still coming in to the magma chamber below, which might be still what's feeding the eruption. I described yesterday how I thought the bulk of the volume of lava coming out is probably past because the summit caldera has collapsed as much as it can by the signals of the earthquakes up there. Just to kind of mention, the earthquake we all felt today was not from the summit. It was from the south flank, from the actual side of the volcano moving relative to the coastline there, or to the ocean, basically to the south. I'm not sure how to quite describe it. I'll show you guys a map later. So was not a summit earthquake. The fact that the summit earthquakes are basically stopped, apart from this oscillation we see in a tilt plot, we don't really see any big movements of land up there right now. To me, indicates that that big reservoir, that big source of lava has been spent, right? We've used it all up. So, and before, the amount of lava trickling in from below the volcano wasn't as important because of that. It was just, was such a little amount compared to what was coming out of the summit that it didn't really matter. But now that the summit part is over, that little amount matters because that's what we're dealing with now. There is lava coming out of the ground still. It's just bubbling from the pit of Fissure 8 and going back down and bubbling up and going back down. But the lava is still coming out, so by that definition, this is definitely not over. I would say what's over is the huge, ridiculous amounts of lava coming out of the ground that came from the summit. That part is probably over, but this kind of slower trickle probably is not. So the reason I'm going into so much detail is because what we need to figure out now to learn to glean is whether that trickle, that 4% coming through the plumbing, is enough to keep it open and feed the flow for some amount of time. It may be that it can't, and that the drop in the pressure, right, that 96% drop in the volume that corresponds to the pressure might be kind of closing that pathway, right? The magma isn't in there keeping it wedged open anymore, so it might be kind of sagging back to a more closed configuration. And it may well be, I haven't had a chance to confirm, by looking at the actual details of the earthquake, but, I can speculate that earthquake, that 4.4 today and a 4.1 that was, I'm not sure how long, a week and a half ago or so maybe, something like that, that both of those may have actually been basically an expression of the rift zone kind of, not exactly collapsing, but kind of sagging and, releasing the pressure that was built on it, right? The tension that was kind of built in there from the magma pushing against it for so long. So it's able to kind of, relax in a sense, That's probably a good word, yeah. So you're able to relax after the pressure was released. And so that's basically it, right? Does it relax to the point where it pinches off that slower flow of magma coming through? And if that happens, then we should see inflation at the summit and deflation at the rift zone, right? Which is what we're seeing right now, in fact, mostly until the last hour of cool. But in fact, now that we're looking at this, I should point out that it is pouring rain, and possibly there's some rain signal in here somewhere.
Oh yeah, it could be.
So we'll have to check this out. It's possible that this little bump here might be rain, because that's might correspond to the rainy, was
something we know throws
clear
off
this
signal.
morning, and we know it started raining not that long ago. So this, my guess now might be actually rain, rather than some actual magma in there.
Good to know these things. Yep, important.
So yeah, especially with that, we can say that the magma is now building at the summit and not making it through to the rift zone, right? And that has changed several times over the last couple of days. So that's what we're really waiting to see how that's going to play out.
Right.
And what John was saying, as far as our kind of leading back to the area of Leilani and down here in Lower Puna. I'm trying to yell on the phone, you guys. The rain's getting extra loud.
You can do it.
All right. Well, if I'm hoarse tomorrow, you guys won't know why. So what we think is happening is because the actual volume of lava is reduced by 96%, possibly. That's just an estimate, of course. That the ground above it is also sagging down, so that we do see areas of cracks kind of moving. The cracks are moving. I've seen pictures today of several areas of cracks actually opening up more than before. So we know that's going on. We have all the gas coming out, So that's going on also. You know, it could be that gas is built up underground and we wiggle the crack above it. You can, you know, also cause a little burp that way as well. So, you know, more gas coming out could relate to that as well, as, you know, and we don't see any inflation. That's really what it comes down to. You know, if we saw inflation, we might say, okay, well, cracks might be moving because of magma coming in, but because everything's deflation, I'm just going to say cracks are moving because magma is moving out, right? So, you know, I know it's a big concern for everybody that, you know, see your cracks moving again, see, you know, more gas coming out, but this is exactly what we talked about. How long? Maybe 3-4 weeks ago, where we talked about, oh, we hope it ends, and when it does end, you know, the ground's going to sag above there, and the cracks are going to move again, and, you know, everyone don't freak out. And it's hard not to freak out now that cracks are moving again, but that's still the preferred story that makes the most sense about it. So that's kind of where we're coming from with that.
Can I describe it a different way? Just to offer another way of looking at what Phil's describing, you know, I often call the lava as like hydraulic fluid, and in most cases the mountainside slips open along the rift. Like our 6.9 earthquake is the mountainside was being pushed or moved outward, and that creates space for the lava. So it's the lava driving in through the rift that pried the mountain open in the first place, created the space for our magma intrusion all the way to Leilani, but now it's lost that pressure. And just numbers to play with are like it's 95% less pressure in that fault that was full of magma holding it open. And so Phil's suggesting, you know, that the recent quakes have to do with that is now compressing because there's less of that hydraulic fluid holding it open. And this is the question, is our 3 or 4% flow rate inside of the mountain going to be enough to keep this system open? And so most likely at the moment, any of the cracking and the ground movement is going to have to do with settling as things are decompressing. And again, the major thing is we're still waiting to see if it's going to reinflate, and we don't have the information of the summit inflating, Pu'uo'o inflating, or down here inflating. We're not too sure. So far everything is in a state of deflating, and this is also causing the ground to shift. So it's a different sequence now. We can expect more cracking, but it's not going to be cracks and then steam and then lava, unless we probably see some inflation, right? So yeah, just exactly. Recapping the same information from a different angle to reinforce what Phil's trying to say about it. So.
And the tiny inflation on the summit is tiny.
Yeah, the inflation that we keep talking about at the summit when we look at our tilt plots, this is just us analyzing the little bit of data that we have right now, which is tiny murmurs of change up at the summit. It doesn't actually count as inflation in a way that's volcanically meaningful right now. It's just we're combing the data to see if some patterns start to show us what might be happening, you know. So that's the best we can do.
Yeah. So yeah, inflation. You know, I mean, a lot of inflation. I mean, a lot of magma. We have a tiny little bit of inflation, even if it is magma coming in. It's just a tiny amount, right? So it's not the kind of thing we worry about for a giant eruption kind of thing. So that's kind of where we're coming from as far as that inflation volume, right? And so for you guys that don't really know what the scale really is, right? I'm going to show you guys once again. You know, here's a scale of microradians, right? So we're, you know, let's look at the actual amount, right? We're going from around minus 0.5 up to maybe 0.7, somewhere in there like that. You know?
Yeah, we made just about a microradian of change.
Just about a microradian,
so
right?
Explain how much that is.
Right. So, yeah, our kind of tour guide, you know, version of how you imagine a microradian is like a penny on its flat side underneath a half-mile long, 1 kilometer long bar of metal, right? So that little angle you get, if you could have like a half-mile long piece of metal that didn't like sag under its own weight, right? And you put a penny under one end of it on its flat side, and then that little angle that you get, that's 1 microradian. So these are tiny amounts. Tiny amounts.
Less than the thickness of a penny. Less than the thickness of a penny over a half a mile. Pretty much, like tiny changes. but it might matter. So
Yeah.
we keep analyzing it.
Yeah, at this point, all these little changes all do matter because we're looking for any sign of what's going to happen, right? Is it coming in or is it going out? Even if the rate isn't very high, that's what we're kind of micro-analyzing this pattern right now. And just to recap, if any of you guys joined us a little late, you know, when you guys looking at this plot over here, I do believe at this moment that this little bit of inflation at Pu'o'o is actually a rainfall induced right here. So you guys can't believe that, you know, and in fact, it's still pouring rain. It's likely to pour rain overnight. This thing is going to actually rise a little more before we see the end of it sometime tomorrow, more than likely. So no one, you know, you're going to freak out. Everyone's going to freak out anyways, but don't freak out about this little bit of rain that's going to push up our tilt plot right there.
Yeah.
All right, so that's basically what we got. I got some photographs to show you guys as well, but maybe let me go back through some of these and make sure I didn't miss any questions before we get too far into here. Yeah, we basically think it's still settling rather than restarting. Let's see. How long will the cracks let out dangerous gas?
Oh. How long will the cracks let out dangerous gas? It's going to be very different in different areas. It all depends, you know. Getting back to the first point is Fissure 8 is still active. There's still lava in Fissure 8, so it's emitting lava and gas. It's just not getting anywhere right now. So you can expect some of the fissures that had lava recently might be venting sulfur gases for weeks to months to come. And in some places, there might be some of those fissures that'll continue to be like a sulfur vent for maybe even years. And that's not necessarily an indication that activity is coming back. Just in some cases, there's a lot of gas that has escaped the magma, is still trapped in the layers of rock down there, and it degasses over a longer time frame. But as the lava retreats from the intrusion, if it doesn't recharge, reinflate, and get going again, then the gas will subside over time, and you would have to be really near one of these vents before it would be at a dangerous level. Yeah.
Right.
But as long as there's lava coming to the surface at Fissure 8, that is producing a dangerous level of gas, especially if you're sensitive to it. You know, so.
Yeah, and there's a pipeline now for any sulfur gas to come up from Fissure 8, especially.
Right.
And you guys got to remember that the actual blade of lava feeding this is at least a half-mile deep. That's a huge amount of lava. Even if it's mostly empty, that's still a huge amount of lava. So that thing can put out sulfur gas for a long, long time to come, basically. Mm-hmm. And whether it's dangerous or not depends a lot on how the wind's dispersing it, that kind of thing. Right. So that's basically it. So, short version, it could be a while. It could be a while still. Yeah, and, like I said before, it could actually steam for years and years, beyond the actual sulfur gases coming out. So, okay. Let me see what other questions we get going on here. High temperatures are a malfunction of the graph. Yep, that's right.
Yep.
Just to recap there. If it's only 4% of the previous volume, that's still over 1,000 gallons a second, which is still major flow. Absolutely. That the amount of lava Pu'o put out, I'm not trying to downplay it in any ways. Like that was enough to destroy whole communities. Also,
right. It
was just a lot more drawn out process, right? And we know Pu'o was able to flow for a long, long time, and that caused a huge impact. And that's kind of what we're trying to figure out here. Are we headed for a situation like that, or is it possible that we can have some long-term flow coming out, that might have a long-term impact in the area, or is it something where the actual conduit will collapse back again? That's basically kind of where I'm trying to get to. I think of it, I've described it this way a couple of times. I live off the grid, so all my water at my house comes from my catchment tank, which collects rain off my roof. Mm-hmm. And during droughts, we got to refill our tanks. So we got to call the water tank up there, and the water tank's gonna roll out basically like a big fire hose and pump water from the truck into the tank to kind of refill it during our periods of drought. So I've had a chance to watch those hoses, kind of fire hoses full with water, more often than an actual real fire truck at a fire scene. But I kind of when I describe a fire hose, I'm talking about that kind of process, right? You got to lay out that thick canvas hose, right? Flat along the ground, and it can't be kinked at all, because any little variation in the pressure is going to cause a little change in the hose and cause a crack, or it's got you don't want any kinks in your hose. And once you put the pressure of the water in there, then the whole thing inflates like a balloon animal kind of thing. You know, it's like whoop, it just kind of fills right up, and you know, it just pours, and then like at the end of the flow, you know, there's not enough pressure to push that water through that hose, and the hose starts like sagging, you know, like a balloon going flat kind of thing, right? And you know, most of the pressure is going down, but there's still some water kind of flowing through there by gravity, what have you. And is it enough to push through the weight of that canvas hose that's trying to settle back by gravity and, you know, just pinch itself flat back on the ground again? And, you know, if you only had 5% of that flow going in there compared to the size that it just was, then that pressure change is what we're talking about, you know. So that's what I'm not sure, you know, that there certainly could be a pathway through that big a hose that allows that trickle to move all the way through. There is no reason why not.
Right.
But the way that it's collapsing, adjusting in that way, doesn't guarantee that's going to happen.
Right. And there's also some historical input in the history of the volcano. There's an indication that, you know, the lava, it's easier for it to erupt higher up in the rift from Pu'uo'o, and up above that is where most of the eruptions are located on the rift, because apparently it must take less pressure to keep the hose open to that distance. And we have less information or less understanding of how much pressure it would require to get the lava all the way down here to our fissures. And if the old amount of lava is actually going to be enough to sustain it way down here at this part of the rift. Because there are differences in the amount of pressure it probably requires at different parts of the rift. And that comes from years of studying that.
Shorter hose. Right?
Shorter hose, and it moves more up higher. That part of the mountain moves more. So there's a lot of historical details that go into this question too. So
yeah, so you know, we just gotta wait and see. That's basically it. You know, that's the question we can't answer until we see what actually happens. And obviously it's the most important one left now. But you know, I will reiterate that I don't believe that huge amount of lava that was coming out before is going to start coming out at that rate anymore. You know, like, I don't think we're going to have one of these massive surge events kind of things where, you know, it takes out, you know, a quarter mile wide swath of land going down several miles. You know, so, you know, we might have a flow that ends up being that big in the end, but Kalapana flows took a week to get that big. It wasn't like, you know, in a couple of hours, like suddenly they're just bursting out, and the amount of lava was like literally 25 times higher.
Wow. Yep.
Right. So that's you know, I think we can take some comfort in that part of it. You know, and you know, maybe we'll be wrong, but you know, I mean, everything we believe, you know, the story that we've been piecing together this whole time with you guys, you know, just to believe that it was basically the giant piston of the magma chamber getting all the way emptied, and it's all the way empty. And so what else could cause that? It would have to be something new. So it could happen, but not the same way as before, because that bank is spent, right? That count is drawn down to zero. Nothing left in there that we believe, of course, you know. So yeah, anything else to add to that before I pull up some pictures?
Oh, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I hope you're right about that. But yeah, I mean, the way we would react, it's just a totally different hazard. You know, if we had a volume like Fissure 8, of course that's a lot to be concerned about, because it's such an enormous volume. If a more like a Pu'uo'o style lava flow were to come out of one of these fissures next, like, it goes a lot slower. We react differently to that, you know, so that's kind of the thing. But yeah, but with any luck, the summit is exhausted and we're not going to see a return to the surges we were seeing before. And so I just hope that all this theorizing ends up correct. That's all I can say about that. You have pictures next, or?
Yeah, so, yeah, let's see. So there's some pictures out by the USGS, but I don't have them saved right now, so we can check them out here in a minute. But let's look at the pictures that I have from Andrew Hara. These are, I'm not sure, are published yet, so you guys will have to look for Andrew's work when he puts them up. But I've just picked a handful of these to kind of show you guys, you know, starting with Pohoiki, which everyone who's been following social media today probably has heard the fact that there's a bunch of sand that's piled up down over there. Where's my pointer? Right over here. Right, so here's a boat ramp right here. There's the break wall, and all the way to the tip of the break wall we have sand. I'll zoom this thing in. Right, all the way to the tip of the break wall we got sand coming in all the way through here. Yeah. And we still have a hot spot over here with some heat, probably some lava still kind of oozing, trickling out in this area right over here. But for the most part, most of the area is kind of stopped flowing. There's another little beach that's forming right in here. More heat over here in this area over here. So that's the status of the flow. We haven't seen any movement on this other edge over here, past the edge. And we were concerned about the flow that was down through here, right? But it seems like it actually flowed maybe.
It was right here in that last photo.
Flowed right here, that kind of
right there.
long sheet-looking thing. That was like that last flow that
coming out.
That apparently is stopped now.
Yep, doesn't look active.
So that's good. You know, that kind of follows our pattern of a flow draining out the tube still. That can happen for a couple weeks, I was saying, for you guys, you know, so probably less and less each day, but there are certainly, I mean, you guys can see from this photograph that there are still ocean entries. From the boat, they're still massive, and there's a lot of spots glowing maybe you don't see on here. So it's still really scenic to see from the ocean, but as far as the amount of lava coming into it, it seems to be decreasing. So there's a couple of spots of lava coming through the tube there, possibly, a little bit through there. Let me see what else we got here. Kind of a zoomed in version. We don't see these big open channels of lava at the surface anymore. Everything is kind of crusted over and flowing through. So there's another entry there. There's some areas like this that look really red. Some areas like up in here, which are really a lot of the actual baked rock, right? Our lava rocks have about 11% iron, more or less. And it oxidizes, it basically rusts. So that kind of turns it that rusty red color, you know, is one very, very basic way of thinking about it. So we have noticed there's a lot of red that's visible on the ground, you know, on the surface of these rocks. So the channel itself
it's unbelievable.
looks like it's fully crusted over. It's hard to say how much goo is underneath this crust, but there certainly is some that's going to be there for a while. You guys can see how much relief there is on the wall of the channel, right? It's hard to really judge scale from here, right? Like that's a house, okay? Right, so like, it's hard to see from perspective, but you know, this wall, the edge of this channel wall looks pretty deep, right? The flow is kind of moving through here. This is the upper part of the channel, closer to, I believe PGV is off on this end right over here. So this is still the upper part of the channel where it still had a chance to kind of drain down, because we know lower down the channel is starting to form these kind of coily areas, and then building up and rising out like farther down the channel, an area of the bend right there. So we still believe lava is draining out, and in fact the most recent photographs that we have and views of fissure rate still show lava within it, but so far down that you don't see it actually connecting to the spillway. So here's a photograph of that. There's you actually can't even see through the fume to the lava spot in the bottom, but the lava is down there. In fact, Ikaika also reported bright glow this morning from the fissure, right? So we have every reason to believe lava is still bubbling up in the middle of there and just not making it out. And it's so far down below, I believe USGS reported something like 5 or 10 meters below the lower edge of the spillway. So we don't believe the lava is actually leaving here into this pipe anymore. We thought it might have been earlier on, but now I think they said today that the actual lava lake might have been near the original ground surface. And in that case, you really got to believe that there's no pathway from there up into this pile of rock, uphill, and to the pile that built on top of the original ground. So we're fairly confident that there's no connection of lava. Oh, there he is. No connection of lava from down here within the pit coming out and connecting through here. So there is lava still moving out, but it's still draining out through the bottom, through the middle of this flow, right through there, and on down the hill. And one thing I wanted to point out is, there you are. So one thing I was going to point out to you guys is now that the flow is all dropped down, you can see some of these interesting features, right? The flow was kind of pouring out of fissure 8 over here, going down a spillway, and here's that big rock that we saw sticking in the middle of the flow. So the flow was kind of moving mostly through the channel this way, but some was kind of moving through the flow back over here and leaving a standing rock sticking above the flow. And this piece of the flow emerged from underneath this piece of rock over here. You guys remember, we're all wondering, where did exactly that come from? Does it come from a cone? Does it come from a tube? And I had speculated it was a lava tube. And in fact, in this photograph right here, you can actually see the lava tube right through here, that this flow actually went in this tube and went through here and poured out the other side. So that's pretty cool to actually see that exposed now that we see that. And you guys, remember we talked a few days ago about how we could see the levels when they were down, that this area back here would basically stagnate, and then when they rose, we'd see a flow going through here and see features forming on the backside of this. So that actually really confirms that, you know, we're on the right track, and the tube was kind of perched above, you know, it's not at the bottom of the channel, it's up way up here at the side. And, you know, that kind of tells you the level of flow we've had for the whole time that that thing has been moving and active, right? The depth was all the way to here for sure. And clearly now it's much, much farther down than that. A lot of the reddened areas through here is all that same kind of oxidized rock, kind of collapsing. It's really crumbly, so after the flow kind of drains away and it kind of has time to crumble, we see these areas like this, kind of that were overhung, collapsing back into the pit. So here is that area as well. So yeah, look who we got show up here. Brody Ikaika.
How you doing?
Yeah, I seem to catch him when he's eating here, but.
How you guys doing, guys? Aloha.
So what you got to add?
Thunder and lightning today. Thanks for our boat trip. It would have been a shocking tour.
That's my kind of joke.
Yeah. But anyways, Lava Ocean is the ocean entry is just still pumping. A lot of lava still going into the ocean. It's still wide. You remember that flow that was going in on the north side? It has entered the ocean, and it is one of the biggest ocean entries out there right now.
That's amazing.
Not the biggest of all time, but it is one of the biggest entry points that we have today.
That's incredible. It's
This
days.
one. So,
Now
there
that's
is
been going.
still a lot of lava entering the ocean. We've seen some on land above the ocean entry. We've seen glow from Fissure 8 on the way down. So there is still lava in Fissure 8.
Wow.
What else, Drew? We've seen the plume clouds from Fissure 8 and above Fissure 8. Huh?
Yeah, and probably along the channelized flow, could see some
Big plumes, yeah.
Wow.
Guys, aloha.
Hey, Andrew.
Yep.
30K,
So that was pretty
Abula.
awesome. The ocean conditions was flat. Pohoiki is, when we first arrived, the point near Pohoiki, where elevators and dead trees surf spot was.
Hey, hold on, I'm saying I can't hear you. I think something's wrong with my camera.
Oh.
I'll let you pull it this way.
Yo, what's happening? Can you hear me now? All right. So the point at dead trees, well, where dead trees and elevators used to reside, the point there, now the new point that the lava has created has extended out pretty far. So when we were going down there, from the last time I've been down there a couple days back, there's dramatic change because that point has extended so far out that it made a little bay where the how you can say it, the boat ramp is in like a bay right now, a huge bay. So it extended out, and there's so much lava that is entering. And when we were there, still a bunch of lava still entering, but there's a nice black sand beach. And what I've been telling people, who has been watching my feed or talking to me in person, there's a berm that the county had made, and kudos to the county. So that berm was for all the high waves or high surf. It was a buffer between the ocean and the parking lot. That berm is the one that saved Pohoiki.
Wow.
It banked off that berm and continued on flowing out towards the ocean. If that berm wasn't there, I'm guaranteed fact that Pohoiki would have been gone.
Wow.
And if anybody know what I'm talking about, there's that 5 to 6 foot berm between the ocean and the parking lot, where Enzo's ice cream truck used to reside. Right there. If it wasn't for that berm, lava would have entered into Pohoiki and flowed. It would have taken out Pohoiki and the boat ramp area. But that berm saved Pohoiki pretty much. But there's so much black sand beaches that check this out. I'll show you a picture of this. So, not saying, but one of my friends went in there to see his property, and he took it upon himself to to look for his property in Kapoho. And this is what it created. Let me see if I can get this thing to open up. Hold on. Check this out.
All right, you guys.
Hold on. Hold on, guys. I'm just trying to get it out here.
You're talking about the sand still, yeah?
No.
No?
Damn, I can't bring it off. Sure, how you get this? I can't bring this up. But you know, this lava flow has done a lot of this lava flow has done a lot of destruction, but it has also created a lot of new land. So I'm trying to bring up this photo because I had this photo.
Yeah, keep
happening.
trying. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Maybe you can. Yeah. So one thing I was going to talk about also is, you know, speaking of creation and stuff, and especially now that we have this image of Pohoiki and all that sand here, is, you know, how much sand is actually in the area. And you guys saw how much sand piled up over here right now. And one concern that I have is, you know, we didn't run out of sand yet. There's still a lot more sand coming. And it could be that sand keeps filling in this area, you know, all through here and possibly farther over, but it could also somehow sweep past here, and maybe it might end up somewhere back. You might have some sand collecting back in here somewhere. And if that happens, you might get some banks. You know, I'm not really sure how the currents and the waves are going to change things up through here, but there might be the need to, you know, either adjust by either pulling sand out of here, dredging it to like keep the boat ramp open, or possibly, you know, building out this rock wall farther out to keep the sand from going around. We'll have to check. We'll have to check that kind of thing out. So, all right.
Okay.
So this is a friend that, oh my God. This is a friend that he hiked in and checked out his place. Check this out. Hiked in and checked up on his place, and this is the new Champagne Ponds.
That's the pond that's behind that beach, right?
Yeah, nope.
No, it's farther in.
This is like Kapoho.
Oh, it's in Kapoho.
This is the new Champagne Pond.
Oh, okay.
So this is the new Champagne Pond. And this is, you can see the lighthouse in the back. Oh, wow. Yeah. So let's see that. It's a beautiful pond. And this is the beach that is in Kapoho. Beautiful black sand beach, and I drove past it this morning, and that beach is magnificent, and you can see the island right there in the background.
Oh.
That was that lava island that came out. That's the island. And it's so this pond is where, almost where Champagne Pond used to reside.
Wow.
So this is yeah, beautiful pond. Yeah, and it's real crystal clear, as you can see.
It's amazing.
Amazing, huh? So with the destruction, there's always beauty behind it. So that's what's happening. I'll get more information of what's happening at the ocean entry tomorrow. But the ocean entry is still very much active. Seen some of people from Nanavale said one of our captains seen the plume this morning, and we had some issues with the plates, I guess. Sent some people out there, and Philip went out there himself. I think the plates moved because of the earthquake that we had today. But so that was my assumption. But some people from Kalapana told me that they went over the plates after the earthquake, and it looked completely the same. And then they went over the plates again this afternoon. It was totally different. So
Yeah, well, it could be the ground. It might still be sagging from the earthquake.
yeah.
Yeah. Plus, there's
Yeah.
all the rain, right? The other thing that happens with cracks and fault lines is when you get more rain, they often
Yeah.
move more. right? So I don't know like if any of that is going
Could
on.
that rain?
the
It could.
rain.
It could happen. A lot of things could happen, but as far as a huge eruption happening, there's no signs of big eruption happening anytime soon.
Still have deflation, and whatever it was that changed it is done.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my take on it. And but I just a couple people we're gonna check out tomorrow. They still have cracks being moving, but it's probably because the earth is settling. Hopefully that's what's happening. But other than that, yeah. There you go.
All right, thanks, Ikaika. So yeah, I think we checked it out. We talked about the sand, right? We'll have to deal with the sand.
Yeah, and it's
You know-
amazing that the ocean entry still being active like that for so long. It's another reflection of what we've been saying all along, that channel is probably deeper than we estimated. There's a lot of lava still draining,
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So the creation isn't done yet. That's kind of the key here, right? We have to wait how it all settles out. The flow is gonna stop trickling eventually. Lots more sand moving around. This is like our first big wave event, big-ish wave event that we've had. Since all that sand is out there, right? So it could actually come and fill in lots of areas down the coastline, to the south and west as time goes on, and more storms with bigger waves come through here. So yeah, let me see. I have a couple more pictures I'm going to show you guys that Andrew shared with us. Well, he shared a whole bunch more with us than that, but I was going to keep it on the shorter side. So here's a view coming out of Fissure 8. Fissure 8 would be off this way. The river channel flows down over here, off in that direction. And I just want to show you guys the thickness of the crust that's formed on top of that upper part of the channel right through there. And kind of look in and see these little undercut areas, like all through here. We got little shadows, right, of areas where the flow was swirling and undercutting. So it just gives us an idea. And once again, it's hard to imagine the size of these things from this kind of photograph.
And yeah, give a sense of it. I mean, this is the part of the channel that's hundreds of yards across here. You're right?
Yeah,
So
it's
like
one of the widest
300
parts.
yards across, 300 meters. And so this edge and those undercut banks, those are taller than a person at least.
Or by far,
Like
yeah.
15 feet, would you
And
say?
it might be as tall as a house, I would think.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the
and that's-
scale of it is incredible. And for a lot of people watching at home, they might not understand just how immense that would be if you were standing inside of here, which
Right, and we're not looking at the bottom of the channel, right? We're looking at basically what's left. Like imagine we're talking in a lot of ways about like our jelly sandwich kind of style thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of lost the middle of the sandwich, but we still have the upper crust and the bottom crust in there. Maybe not as much of a bottom crust; it's hard to really see. But we still got an upper crust kind of filling in that whole channel, right? So yeah, it's likely I'd say at least 10 feet,
10 feet or more.
maybe getting to 20
along
feet some
most of this
areas.
rim. Yeah, some places it would be higher, but
Yeah, and
the
if you-
point is, it's a lot bigger than you might interpret just looking at the photo. If you're standing there in person, it's huge.
yeah, and then if you add in the actual lava that's cooled in the bottom, it's probably at least twice that, really.
So,
So-
overall, it seems like that channel was deeper than we originally thought of it.
Right.
A lot of evidence of that now.
So it's kind of similar kind of view, but maybe you can see those little cavities under the side a little better in this kind of angle photograph right there. Kind of looking down the channel. And thanks once again to Andrew Hara for sharing these photographs. I'm sure he'll publish them and have his watermark on there. You guys got to live with our blurry live version for now, pre-release version. And one other thing that I saw in today's USGS report was that this morning, anyways, they're saying that they actually stopped hearing any sounds coming out of the vent, which is interesting. That might mean something as far as gas. Yeah. So the gas stopped coming out so steady. It wasn't just doing its regular gurgling kind of thing. And yeah, what Ikaika just said, he's actually heard reports tonight of some booming coming from there, right? And we had to kind of check into it a little bit more because there's been lots of thunder and lightning around. So I want to make sure it wasn't that, but apparently there has been some booming there, and that kind of leads us to believe more of the gas is kind of burping out like in bigger pulses rather than actually a steady stream. You know, something like that could be happening. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. See
Bad
how that goes.
SO2 levels, and also, yeah, that's what the report was. There was some booming coming out of fishery aid, and my thing to debunk what was booming was probably it was a thunder or lightning, and they said no, it was right there, and it was coming out of it was by the fisher. So I was like, okay. But another thing too that is bad, SO2 levels in Leilani Estates right now. Just got a text. So if you guys need anything of respirators or anything like that, come check us out either Monday. Come get new respirators. If not, hit me up on Facebook. I'll try to get you guys some.
And Monday opening at 10, is it? 10. Do you know that yet?
10, I think. Yeah.
All
Check
right.
out Puhonua Opuna. I think they have all the.
Yeah, we'll make an announcement there.
Yeah, for sure. Aloha.
All right. So anything else to add, John? Should we?
No, I think we covered a lot of good stuff. It's just stay informed, you know, the fissure is still bubbling. We don't know what's next, so don't overreact to every detail, but we're watching every detail so we can stay informed and react appropriately when we need to.
Yeah, and you know, just as you guys know, we'll keep doing this. We'll keep giving you guys our analysis here, and you know, update you guys with any new developments in the data that we see. You know, we'll probably keep doing this kind of once a day schedule unless like something causes us to jump in and do it more often, like some big change is important for everybody. But right now we seem to be, you know, all the changes are happening, and you know, they're all to us pointing to the lava, you know, leaving the area more so, right? So there's still lava coming out of the ground. It's not over. It's still bubbling up. But it has been definitely, the slowdown pattern does continue about that. So the fires, you know, we heard it was raining up there earlier today, so we'll have to see in the morning about that. But the fires, I think I saw Dane post, had risen to about 3,600 acres.
Yeah.
Something like that. So yeah, the thunder was not from the fissure. It was, there was thunder also, and the fissure was booming all kind of at the same time. As we've seen here, you know, with our primal force of Earth here in Hawaii, you know, we'll get all kinds of elements acting together.
So my question is, so you went to see the plates. Was it different?
Maybe a little bit. We noticed driving up that looked like the asphalt, the tar around the edge of the plates was maybe moved, like the plate had wiggled, and it was either, we thought maybe from the earthquake or just the motion of the driving on it had moved the tar a little bit, but there wasn't too much noticeable. And my roommate drives down that way every day, and he didn't notice anything between the morning and the afternoon or since yesterday, but he might just not have noticed, you know. So if it was very changed, it's not noticeable to, not that noticeable.
Check it out after.
Yeah.
Well, all right, you guys, thanks for joining us. We'll get back to you guys tomorrow. We'll see what the status of that fire is tomorrow. We're hoping that their water does what it can. You know, I know that there's a whole bunch of firefighters out there, like, working extremely hard, you know, all through the night, all through the day, working on that, you know, along with, I believe, aircraft are also dropping water in the area up there. So we'll just have to trust those guys are doing the best they possibly can. They're using some natural flows as natural fire breaks and barriers, you know, so they're doing everything they can. So it sounds like they're doing awesome as usual, and you know, thank those guys for their dedication and that really dangerous job that they're doing up there.
Most definitely.
So with that, I think I'm ready to say stay classy, Puna. John, you got your own words?
One moment at a time. No news is good news. Stay classy.
And Brady Ikaika, are you going to give us a
Stay classy, Puna.
aloha?